All right.
All right, well, welcome everybody. We're just about a little past 3 p.m. And everybody's here. So good afternoon and welcome to the Slow Food Farm to School webinar. I'm Anna Jager. I'm the Slow Food USA Network and Support Outreach Intern, and I'll be moderating for the next hour. I'd like to thank everybody and especially the panelists for coming out, taking time out of their day to join us. And we're honoring October, which is Farm to School month nationally. And just as a reminder, this webinar is going to be recorded and will be shared on our website and uploaded as a YouTube video for future reference. So today we have 5 panelists for this webinar. We have Anna Mullen, who is with Communications for the Farm to School National Network, Betsy Rosenbluth, the Program Director of Vermont Feed, Andy Nowak, the former Director of the National School Garden Program with Slow Food USA, Tegan Haggie, the Farm to School Regional Lead for the Mid-Atlantic region for USDA, and Charlene Badman, a chef in Phoenix, and also the creator of the Blue Watermelon Project. So this webinar was going to be a resource to the Slow Food chapter leaders for engaging their communities in local food sourcing and farm-to-school practices. So when all the presenters have shared, we'll have a Q&A at the end. So if you're tuning in and you have any questions, feel free to make a comment in the chat section of the GoToMeeting, and we will talk about them at the end. All right, so Anna, if you would like to start, welcome.
Great. Thank you, Anna. And thank you to Slow Food USA for having the National Farm to School Network on today. My name is Anna Mullen, and I'm the Communications Associate for the National Farm to School Network. And as one of my roles is to help lead the annual celebration of National Farm to School Month every October, so very timely thing to be talking about today. I'm going to share some general information and resources related to our organization, the National Farm to School Network, that may be of use and interest to you, as well as some information about how you can celebrate Farm to School in October and all year round, recognizing that we just have about a week of the month left. So I think it's really helpful always to start with sort of a brief overview of what Farm to School is and what the movement's about. So Farm to School enriches the connection that communities have with fresh, healthy food and local food producers by changing food purchasing and education practices at schools and early care and education sites. So I think one thing that's really important to always remember is that Farm to School is not one defined program, but really a set of activities or practices that can be implemented in any community. And I think that's one of the really great things about Farm to School. It looks different everywhere. So instead of talking about sort of a program of Farm to School, what we talk about are the core elements of Farm to School, the things that make up this movement. And there are 3 of them. The first is procurement, so purchasing local foods and promoting and serving them in the cafeteria or as snacks or as taste tests. Education, giving students an opportunity to participate in educational activities related to agriculture, food, health, and nutrition. And then school gardens, which means getting students engaged in hands-on learning through gardening. So those 3 things, procurement, education, and school gardens, are what make up Farm to School. And we say that any school or community or early care and education site that's doing any one of those 3 things is doing Farm to School. But of course, these things work really cohesively together. And when they do, it gives students just really endless opportunities to engage with fresh local food and build healthy habits that really last a lifetime. So our organization, the National Farm to School Network, is really a leading voice for the U.S. Farm to School and Farm to Early Care and Education movement. And as a network, we're made up of more than 15,000 members in communities across the country. We have nearly 200 core and supporting partner organizations across all states, Washington, D.C., and the U.S. territories. And these core and supporting partner organizations are based at state agencies, nonprofits, university extension, and other entities. And our contacts there are really experts in Farm to School happening in their location. So they're really fantastic point people to connect with when you have questions about things like local procurement, or if you're looking to dig deeper into sort of Farm to School activities happening in your state. So great folks there to have on your radar and to be able to connect with. In addition, our organization has an advisory board and a national staff. And as an organization, our work is really meant to provide information, advocacy, and networking opportunities for communities that are working to advance farm to school and farm to early care and education. So what that means is we connect people to resources, people to policy, and people to people. So I want to share some specific resources that we have available, as well as opportunities that I think may be of interest to you all in your roles. And the first is to highlight that we have more than 600 free resources on our website, and this includes fact sheets, webinar recordings, toolkits, lesson plans, all available and searchable via various topics and content areas. And these resources include things for like getting started or information on local procurement or the research-based benefits and information about the benefits of farm to school activities for various stakeholders. I also want to highlight that we have a new report out on the economic benefits of farm to school and local procurement. So if that's of interest to you, that's a great new resource to read and to access. And all of this information is again available at farmtoschool.org/resources. I put up a bunch of links on the slide to help show you where things can be found. Another opportunity I want to highlight is our 9th National Farm to Cafeteria Conference, which is coming to Cincinnati, Ohio next April in 2018. And this is a biennial event that our organization, the National Farm to School Network, convenes with more than 1,000 diverse stakeholders who are working to source local food for institutional cafeterias and really foster a culture of food and agricultural literacy across America. So it's really a premier opportunity to network and learn and really take your farm to school or farm to cafeteria activities to the next level. I want to mention that we are seeking folks with expertise. Just like you folks who are on this call today, people who have good stories and good experiences and good information to share. We're currently accepting workshop and poster proposals for the conference, and the deadline to submit those is November 14th. And you can learn more about that RFP process and then just general information about the conference at farmtoschool.org/conference. So the last big thing I want to hit on is the really timely one, which is National Farm to School Month, which is what we celebrate every October. National Farm to School Month is really a time to celebrate the connections that are happening all over the country between children and local food. And it's also a really great time to dig in deeper into those farm to school activities that you're already doing and to take them to the next level. The National Farm to School Network advocated for the creation of National Farm to School Month, and it was designated by Congress in 2010. And we organize the celebration annually every October with many partners and organizations across the country to help raise a conversation and educate people about the benefits that farm to school brings to kids, farmers, and communities. So our 2017 celebrations are really aiming to inspire and inform and encourage everyone, no matter what their role in this movement, to take action for farm to school. We are sharing inspiring stories of farm to school innovation and success on our blog, and we're encouraging folks to learn more about the movement with webinars and tweet chats and lots of social media activity. And then we're asking folks to tell us what they're doing to take action this October. We have a Take Action pledge that we're encouraging everyone to take 2 minutes to sign and commit to taking a small action for farm to school this month. And everyone who takes that pledge will be entered to win our sweepstakes, which has a really exciting prize package that will go to 10 winners, which include a Project Learning Garden learning kit from the Captain Planet Foundation, a student standing desk from Stand to Learn, and then also a collection of seeds from High Mowing Organic Seeds. So we're just encouraging everyone to find that one small way that you are going to get involved or go a little bit deeper with Farm to School this month and celebration of National Farm to School Month, to share that and then enter to win an exciting package of Farm to School prizes. A few more things to highlight before I pass off to the next presenter. Recognizing it is almost the end of October, there's still plenty of opportunities to get involved. And if not this year, want to plant some seeds for you to think about for next October. We have loads of Farm to School Month resources available on our website at farmtoschool.org/month. And these include things like activity ideas and coloring sheets, as well as downloadable posters and stickers and bookmarks, all of which are customizable so that you can promote the celebrations that you're hosting in your community. We also have a cool national calendar that shows how different states and communities are celebrating National Farm to School Month. So for example, yesterday, our friends in Montana and in North Carolina both did apple crunches to celebrate Farm to School Month. So they encouraged schools and early care and education sites and institutional cafeterias to purchase local apples and have everyone crunch into them at the same time and have a conversation about where those apples came from and try apple recipes and really, talk about local food and get excited about healthy eating too. So events like that are being hosted by our state partners all over the country, and both at the state level and the local level, and really cool way to see what's happening in your community. Again, if not for this October, for next October, and perhaps give you some ideas for activities you can plan. So lastly, again, our big push this month is really just to encourage folks to get involved and take action and dig a little bit deeper to do something more that you wouldn't do the 11 other months of the year, or to take the plunge and do that during National Farm to School Month. And we'd love to hear what that is, and we'd love to celebrate that with you. So head over to our website and take the pledge. And for example, attending this webinar may be the way that you are digging a little bit deeper into Farm to School this month. My contact information is at the bottom of the slide, and I would love to be in touch with you about questions you have or ideas you'd like to share with me. We are really happy to help be a resource and a thought partner on the great work that you all are doing to connect kids to fresh, healthy food. So please don't ever hesitate to reach out. Thanks again for having me and the National Farm to School Network represented on today's webinar. Looking forward to hearing the other presenters.
Great. Thank you so much, Anna. Yeah, it's perfect that the Farm to School Month is in October. It's a perfect time for harvesting and a great time to get involved. And there's some great resources for chapters to use. So that's the story of what's happening on the national level. And now we look forward to hearing what's going on the state level. Betsy Rosenbluth with Vermont Feed. Welcome, you're up.
All right, thank you. I'm happy to be here for also National Farm to School Month. I thought I would just start by telling a little bit more how I got involved with Farm to School. So I worked for the city of Burlington, Vermont, and I was running their Sustainable City program, and we had a big annual meeting and everybody was celebrating the amazing work happening in the food system with farm to table and farmer incubator programs and CSAs and farmers markets. And a woman raised her hand and said, you know, I'm a parent and this is amazing what's happening in our city, but the food that my child got served today was corn dogs and French fries. And there's this total disconnect between the school food and what's happening in our food system. So that led this community effort to focus on school food system change, and we created a Burlington Food Council. And today, now it's been over 10 years, the Burlington School Project has gardens in almost every school, even an orchard, honey production. They're trying to buy something close to 30% of their school food from Vermont producers. And they have a high school food club where the kids are growing in the garden and then run a food truck at events where they're cooking and selling the prepared food. So they've come a long way. And that got me really engaged in Farm to School. Vermont Feed is a partnership of the Northeast Organic Farming Association of Vermont, NOFA Vermont, and Shelburne Farms, which is a nonprofit. And we've created the Vermont Feed, or Food Education Every Day, that project in 2000 to support Farm to School. And I would say our success in Vermont has been from our model of change called the 3 C's. It's that change really needs to happen by connecting classrooms, cafeterias, and the community. And it wasn't just enough to get a local carrot on the plate, which is really awesome, but how do you connect that to what's happening with the learning in the classroom and community-based learning, community partnerships, so that by linking all three, that creates this long-term success. And we talk also about our fourth C, which is collaboration, since there's really not any one organization or leader alone that can do this work. And to demonstrate that, Vermont Feed also coordinates a statewide network, which Anna referred to. Many states are developing more robust state networks. In Vermont, we have over 30 organizations and state agencies working together towards a single shared goal with our collaborative action projects. A couple things that we do at Feed: we focus on building capacity. We focus on professional development for food service and teachers and farmers and school communities. And we used to do more direct service with schools, but we know we want Farm to School to go viral. So it's more of a training the trainers model. We also have an array of resources and guides that you can find on the National Farm to School Network site, or you have the vermontfeed.org website up on the slide as well. And that includes guides to taste tests, using local food, community action planning. We even have a cookbook for school chefs that was developed by school chefs. So you might want to check out our website. We elevate the voice of youth in our efforts with our Junior Iron Chef competition. So we have each year about 60 middle and high school student teams competing at the fairgrounds, and they spend the school year developing recipes and sourcing local ingredients, and then there's a cook-off with about 900 spectators on hand. And the winning teams then cook their dishes at the State House for the legislators. And over the last 10 years, we've probably had over 3,000 teams participating. So now I think more and more states are also hosting some kind of youth cooking competition, just to work with teens on those skills and teamwork and sourcing local food, cooking from scratch. And lastly, I'll just mention, because I think it's important and it's happening also in most of the states, is policy and state level policy. So certainly on a federal level, the Farm Bill and some other legislation is really key. But more and more states are looking at what they can do to support efforts like Farm to School. Vermont passed the first Farm to School bills in the country that funded a state grant program. And last year we passed legislation to expand that to early care and education. And it put our Farm to School goal into state legislation, so that by 2025, 75% of schools will have integrated food system education and source 50% of their food from sustainable local and regional sources. So that's our vision, what we're heading towards together. So what does it look like? I was on a webinar, kind of a peer learning call not long ago, where schools were reporting some of the things they've been doing, like raising and selling 1,000 pounds of ground beef back to their school. Or in another school, they had diverted 2,300 pounds of food waste to composting. Some schools are putting in place cooking carts and cooking buddies to do more in classrooms. There was a school where the students built an edible pocket park in their community. And it goes on, the examples. Student-grown CSAs for families and parents, and lots of local food products on the menu. In Vermont, about 75% of Vermont schools now have school gardens. About 2/3 do some kind of taste testing of new product or local product. And so even though 95% of the schools serve some kind of Vermont product, the total amount is still only at about 6%. So we still know we have a long way to go to figure out how to get food into the cafeteria, and more schools engaged. In terms of, for you, ingredients for success, I would say when it comes to partnering with a school, it's really starting where the energy is, where their interest is, and that is so varied. Your champion could be the food service director, could be a teacher, could be a parent. Where is their interest and how to start there. And then thinking about diverse partners maybe you haven't thought of, a school nurse or PE or community stores or chefs, or, there's just such an array of partners who get involved in Farm to School. A clear and feasible goal, we really encourage schools, once you sit down, you want the world, but how to think about a feasible, clear goal people can understand, and that you can build momentum and credibility with some small, impactful activities, and to take it one step at a time to really build those programs. And then, of course, remembering to celebrate success, which is always fun when you're talking about food and gardens, but also equally important is to debrief your experiences. I think sometimes we have these total failures and we walk away dejected, but there's so much to learn from and adjust for your next step. So that's some of my advice for you as you're thinking of partnering. And we'll get into more with questions, but I would say tips for local chapters might be to really start with learning the story in your school. What are they trying to do and how can you help? That's your entry point. And to be really clear about maybe who you are and what you can offer. Is it volunteers? Is it marketing, fundraising? What might that be? And to be able to brainstorm together what that might look like. Looking into who's involved already. Is there some kind of structure? Is there a garden committee or a school wellness committee or a PTO group interested that you can plug into? And mostly just be curious. And I think most of our mistakes come from not being curious about who we're trying to help and just really asking questions and listening as the place to start. And I think a lot of what we're trying to do is just elevate the profession of school nutrition. So I think the days of calling the staff lunch ladies, even though some people love to refer to themselves as lunch ladies, I think those days are gone. It's really such a critical part of the school day to be a school nutrition professional and to be nourishing our kids in all the ways that they do that. And lastly, keeping fun in the equation, right? That's always sort of a guiding piece for all this work. So I'm happy to go into any more detail when we get into questions, but I'll stop there.
Great. Thank you so much, Betsy. The programming in Vermont sounds like a lot of fun. It's very impressive. So thank you for that. Next, we have Andy Nowak, the former Slow Food Director of the National School Gardens. Andy, you're highly regarded in the office here in Brooklyn, and we're excited to hear about your experiences in Farm to School and any advice you might have. So whenever you're
hello
ready.
to my friends in Brooklyn. It's been a while since I've been there. Yes, I just stepped down from being the director of the National School Garden Program. So today I'm going to wear my Slow Food Denver hat because I think that's a little bit more applicable to our audience of slow food leaders. A little bit about my background and most of my experience I'm going to talk about today is my work with Denver Public Schools. Although over the span of about 14 years, I worked with about a half a dozen major school districts in the Denver metro area. And while my work was mostly in large school districts, probably at least 40, 50,000 students or greater, I think these experiences can be applied to almost any setting, be it childcare centers, be it private schools, and even small districts. In Denver, I as a Slow Food Denver member and leader, I got involved with a lot of the things that Anna described earlier about what is Farm to School. We were successful in getting Denver Public Schools a national grant to look at farm to school practices through School Food Focus. We worked on procurement strategies. I have a culinary background, so I was involved with staff training in scratch cooking at the district level. We help install salad bars in all schools. I've been working for a number of years on garden and cafeteria protocols, first in Denver and now around the country. And the latest projects in Denver Public Schools are district farms and greenhouses that are growing food for on a large scale. And because a lot of this work, I was named to the Colorado State Farm to School Task Force, which is one of only a couple state task force around the country that have been brought together to work on farm to school efforts in our state. It might be obvious here that school gardens was my entry point into farm to school in these districts. And I think for slow food leaders and slow food chapters, school gardens make a lot of sense to get involved in a district. You can build a good reputation and a good standing in the district with a successful school garden program. I'm not going to talk much about gardens today because if you know me through Slow Food, that's all I really talk about at times. But I want to concentrate on how slow food people can be more involved in the other aspects of farm to school and a lot of it around procurement. I think the biggest lesson I've learned in now a total of 17 years working farm to school is, as a slow food leader, leave your slow food agenda at the door. There's a very good chance that if you get into meetings with the food service department, they've never heard of slow food. And over the years, they've been beaten down by a lot of well-intended people who have different agendas for the school meal program. And in my experience, this really starts to shut the door on any progress. You really want to come in there with your only agenda is, how can I support you? What can I do for your lunch program, for your food, your farm to school program? Who do you want to meet? Who can I connect you with? And what kind of resources do you need? Really don't even, very minimally talk about slow food in the beginning. Let them get to know you as a person that is well connected. Let them get to see you, come show up with deliverables on time, be able to perform and deliver what they're looking for. And then as you get to know each other and you're building up a great working relationship, you can start to bring in some slow food. But in my experience, they're not quite ready for the slow food principles at a hardcore level. The food service world of schools is very different than any food service that you might have experienced as a slow food leader with restaurants and other culinary pursuits. So, you as a community member, you need to learn a lot about how food service works, and then apply what kind of connections and knowledge that you have around the local food system to the school system. So I served several roles for Denver Public Schools and the other districts in the Denver area. I served as a connector. As a slow food leader, we get to know a lot of farmers and chefs, and the food service world and schools need these connections for farm to school, but they don't know where to go find them. They're so used to checking boxes at the Sysco order forms or whatever food provider they may be contracted with, that they don't even know where to find a farmer out in the community or how to recruit a chef for a knife skills training or some sort of scratch cooking training. But as a slow food leader, you're very well connected to those types of folks. So, when you ask who do you want to meet and what kind of resources do you need, you can play that role and connect them to the local experts in your area. But once you make those connections, you may have to translate the way these different worlds talk. So farmers use a certain kind of language when talking about their seasonal foods and their quantities and their harvest times, very different than the food service providers and their relationship with the Syscos of the world, where they can pretty much get whatever they want whenever they want it. So you might have to, sit down in the meeting with the food service director and a local farmer and really help translate the information from one to the other. So they start talking about the same kind of numbers and the same kind of food items. And that even applies to chefs and introducing them to the food service directors. Chefs often come in with a pretty hardcore mission, and you might have to train that chef a little bit how to talk school food language. And I think that's very important to get off on a good foot in that relationship, so that the chef doesn't appear to be wanting to dominate the activities in the district, and they're actually delivering what the food service director is interested in. And then as a community member, we often have lots of time to go run errands, to go explore farms, to check out their crops and their food safety plans. Probably have a lot more time than the food service world does. They are busy feeding our kids, and it's a very difficult job, and they don't have time to get out in the community. And so we as slow food leaders in the local community can play that role and go run some of these errands for them and come back with the information that they are seeking. So I just want to caution slow food people out there. It's a very exciting opportunity to get involved working with districts, whether they're large districts or small districts. We've had some great success in Denver, as Slow Food Denver has been partnered up with all these districts. And I've listed some of these successes. We almost have school gardens in every school in Denver. We have salad bars in all the schools. They're scratch cooking throughout the district, purchasing over $500,000 a year in local products. We've got 3 school farms up and going right now, growing organic produce. Denver is often recognized as the leader in garden to cafeteria programs. And the 2 districts, the 2 largest districts that we work with in the Denver area, Denver Public Schools and Jeffco Public Schools, represent over half the kids in the state of Colorado. And how exciting is that for a small slow food chapter and only a couple people working the ground to have that large of an impact on those number of kids and affecting programs that are really affecting the whole state, because as the largest districts go, the smaller districts follow. So you can obviously get a hold of me through Slow Food USA. My email is still active there, andrew@slowfoodusa.org. I'm happy to mentor any slow food leaders who are getting involved in farm to school activities in their communities. And I've got lots of resources and lots of lessons learned working with these large school districts that can be applied to any setting in your community. So thanks for the opportunity, and I'm looking forward to the rest of the webinar.
Thank you, Andy. That was great and very helpful. Colorado is another great example of a successful farm to school state. So that's great. Thank you. Next, we have Tegan Hagee, the U.S. Department of Ag Farm to School Regional Lead for the Mid-Atlantic region. Welcome, Tegan. I'm going to pull up your slides. Can you see them?
I can't see them, but I have them pulled up here, so
Okay,
I'll just let you know when to forward. Well, thank you, Ona. Andy, that was such great advice. I always love to hear your perspective, and I'm also really excited to be on this webinar today, so thank you for inviting the USDA Farm to School program. My name is Tegan Bernstein, and I'm with the USDA's Office of Community Food Systems, and I'm excited to be here today primarily because I have some experience with slow food. I was a 2008 Terra Madre Food Justice delegate, and I also previously was a regional lead for the National Farm to School Network, and have been doing this work for a long time, and have really seen the benefits that a strong symbiotic relationship between farm to school programs and Slow Food USA could blossom into. So I'm so glad that chapters have tuned in today and are interested in hearing more about farm to school in general. So next slide, I'm going to go over sort of 6 ways that you can get involved with farm to school programs, and specifically through a perspective of the USDA Farm to School program, which was formalized in 2010 under the exact same child nutrition reauthorization that Anna mentioned at the beginning of the webinar. And that formalization did three things. So the first one is that it created a training and technical assistance program, which really comes in the forms of us, the regional leads. So every region in the US has a regional lead. I cover the Mid-Atlantic region, and you can see the faces here of my colleagues throughout the rest of the nation. I'm assuming that Ona will email these slides out to everyone, so you'll be able to have this contact information. And don't hesitate to reach out to us. We are here to answer questions such as, how do I get involved in Farm to School in my state, or even things that are more specific. The second way that you can be of help is either assist a district, or if you're with a nonprofit, apply for the USDA's Farm to School grant program. Our request for application was released a few weeks ago, and applications are due December 8th. We have a wide variety of grants, and we have a wide variety of eligible entities. So state and local agencies, nonprofits, schools or school districts, Indian tribal organizations, and also small and medium-sized farmers are definitely available to be recipients of our USDA Farm to School grant program. There are 3 track overviews. The first one is planning. We also have implementation, and there are programs that are a little bit more established but really want to springboard into either a special project or expand their program. And then we also have a training grant that is really targeted to organizations and states that want to hold trainings. The third step is you can review your Farm to School fact sheets. I've lost count. We publish about 6 fact sheets a year, and our program has been around in its full form for a little over 5 years now. But we really do have fact sheets that touch on all of the different aspects of a Farm to School program, and generally people find them quite helpful. We also are always looking to develop more. So if you see that something is missing, again, don't hesitate to reach out to your regional lead. So this is just a smattering of them. We have a procurement decision tree that's really geared towards child nutrition professionals, the school food service directors or lunch ladies, as they were somewhat referenced, or we were told not to reference them as earlier in the program. We have one for producers, selling local meat in schools. We have quite a few about school gardens and a wide variety of other topics. You can definitely download our Farm to School Planning Toolkit. It's pretty comprehensive, and I think is a good place to start if you're just learning about Farm to School programs. We also have a shorter Farm to School Planning Guide that is a really short version of this toolkit that's 3 pages. That's a little bit more easily digestible that you might want to take if you are setting up a visit with the school. The 5th step is to subscribe to our e-letter, The Dirt. If you don't already have a subscription, there is a link here. You also can find the way to subscribe if you go to our webpage. A little box pops up because we are always looking for more subscribers, and it's really the best way that we have to communicate all about different Farm to School programs from across the nation. You also can find archives of The Dirt on our website as well, and you can search for programs in your area or different grant opportunities. Finally, if you haven't heard of the Farm to School Census, we do put out a Farm to School census about every few years. We've conducted 2 so far, and we do survey every school district in the nation. So it's pretty comprehensive. You can go to farmtoschoolcensus.fns.usda.gov, or you can just Google USDA Farm to School Census. These are a few of the stats from the census, but you can also search that website by state or search your district to see what their specific responses were to our census questions, which can be a great way to start conversations with your district about what's already going on in your area regarding Farm to School. So with that, I just want to thank you again for your time, and I'll hand things back over to Ona. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Tegan. You've definitely listed lots of helpful resources on how we can engage in Farm to School practices, and that's much appreciated. Lastly, last but not least, we introduce Charlene Badman. She is a chef with Slow Food Phoenix, and she has created, under the Slow Food Phoenix umbrella, the program called Blue Watermelon, and she'll talk more about that. So, Charlene, you're up.
Thank you for having me today. I was just going to give you a little bit of my background and then kind of how Blue Watermelon Project started. I had my restaurant in the Phoenix area for 8 years, and soon after, I was approached by a vice principal of a school to come to their school and teach a class in their chef in the garden is what they called it. They would have a chef in the garden, and I went, and while they would have this going on, or we were doing our demos while the students are eating their lunch, and watching them be in this garden and making something fresh from the garden while they're eating a school lunch. That one example was that they were having the vegetarian option that day was a bagel and cream cheese, and I was like, there's such a disconnect with what's happening here. So I continued to try and go back to the school garden there as often as I could. And about 2 years ago, I was asked by the James Beard Foundation's Impact Program to come and do a boot camp specifically about childhood nutrition, and it happened to actually be at Shelburne Farms. And I went there and I did the program. It's only a couple of days. It's super intense. Came back very, very uplifted and motivated and excited about what I could do and the difference that we could make here with our school programs, and especially with the lunch program, but also with our gardens. And I had asked Catherine Miller, who is responsible, she's in charge of the program with the James Beard Foundation, to come out and speak to a group of chefs that I knew were interested. They were also chefs that were going into the school that is very close to where my restaurant is, but going into that school and doing the same thing I was doing a demo with different ages of students. These are students that are kindergarten through 8th grade. And I had asked her to come. This is just this past April when she was able to come and speak to a group of about 20 of us. And we decided that we would form a group and try to meet. And we weren't exactly sure what our goal was going to be actually, but we decided to meet every month and see where we would go with that. I had asked that it was just 20 of us at that time. I had asked that people just start bringing other people they would know about that might be interested in our cause and what we wanted to do. So 2 months into it, 3 months into it, like about July, just this past year, 3 months ago, we are up to 40 people. We doubled the amount. We now have chefs, we have farmers, teachers, some advocates. We have Maricopa County master gardeners that are coming to our meetings. And we're talking about what we want to do. We start thinking about the fact that October is Farm to School Month, and that we could try to make an impact and what we can do with those parts. So we decided to do a few things, which we've done for the entire month of October. We have our group, we had our group get together. We decided to call it the Blue Watermelon Project, just something a little different and unusual, not necessarily what you'd see, but, and kind of start the conversation. So we decided for the entire month of October to break it down into different areas that we could try to have awareness and have events. We had chefs go to farmers markets and do demos doing what a school lunch would be. They did that 2 weekends at 2 different farmers markets each weekend. We also did a larger version of the Chef in the Garden program at this school. It's called Echo Canyon School. And we had 250 parents and students come to the event. And we had different stations. There were 8 different chefs with 8 different stations making a school lunch part. Mine was a chicken taco. And we ended up using, out of having 250 students and parents, we ended up using 3,000 forks. And we found that the majority of those were children that were actually trying the different dishes. The last thing that we did was just this past Sunday, which was we had a fundraiser for Slow Food, and we called it Feeding the Future. And we again set up stations with different chefs doing something that they would have at school lunch: sloppy joes, fish sticks, a taco salad. We also had students that had won a contest that were in high school using exactly the nutritional requirements and the dollar amount and made a dish and they came and presented their dish as well. We had about 120 people attend that event and raised about $7,000. We're hoping we're going to meet just in a couple of weeks, because this was all just these last few weeks, but we're going to meet in a couple of weeks to kind of talk about our goals and what we would like to do in the future. We also want to make sure that we can possibly work with other school districts and try to use our ideas and recipes, as long as they are under, of course, the guidelines, to make sure that it's something that it's open to possibly putting into different schools here. We also would like to be able to see schools sourcing a lot more locally. Really, if right now we do have a few farmers that are in with our project, try if they have excess amounts of food that they could be putting this into school programs and school lunch programs. We want to work together to have like a grant program built that we can give money so that gardens can be developed. Just a few things we're working on, just so that we can start to think about what long-term effect that we can possibly have in the future, specifically in Arizona. And that's about it.
Wow, thank you so much, Charlene. The event sounded like a lot of fun, and they also sounded pretty delicious, but also super informative for the community. And I think that's really important. You definitely set a great example for the slow food community on how chefs especially can engage and celebrate National Farm to School Month and farm to school practices, and really show the exciting possibilities that can arise within the school lunch program. So thank you so much. And thank you to everybody, all of our panelists, for your participation in the webinar. You've all provided us with some great information and resources on how to become more involved with farm to school practices. We're getting close to the hour, so I'd like to take the opportunity for any questions. I know I have a few questions. I have a question this could go for Betsy or Andrew, or even Charlene. So what are some of the biggest challenges or roadblocks that you've run into while implementing farm to school practices that you'd like to talk about, and maybe some solutions that you've found?
I'm happy to take a stab at that. I think we probably all have a list going. But, schools, and you'll hear this from teachers and administrators, there are a lot of priorities and a lot of competing priorities in a structure that's very pressed for time. And so even the best ideas and the best intentions and a desire to do more farm to school activities sometimes can run into just snags getting off the ground. And so we address it in a couple of ways. One is that farm to school, and I think somebody might have mentioned this today, it can't be an add-on. It's really a way for schools to achieve what their priorities are and what they want to achieve. And sometimes in that conversation, that needs to become clear. So when you talk to a teacher or school principal and they're working on parent engagement or some physical activity or any number of student mediation and behavior issues, how can farm to school help them achieve their existing priorities? And in a way, it helps implement several priorities, just given the diversity of what can happen in a farm to school program. So that's how we've approached this. I think teachers have really appreciated it. And I think the other way we get at that as a support organization by providing some planning time. And so if you can convene partners together and have that time to really talk through small steps and who's going to do it and map out some of the activities, sometimes it becomes less overwhelming, and collectively you can accomplish a lot more than just dropping something on one person's desk. So anyway, there's one for you.
love to chime in on this one too. I'm going to address it more from the procurement side of the equation, and it should be no surprise that one of the challenges is finances. How do we pay for this? School food service is working on levels of reimbursement from the federal government, currently somewhere around $3.25 a plate, and less than half of that is spent on food costs for each plate. And so and then when you talk to the farmers who the type of farmers that tend to gravitate towards farm to school programs are those that sell at farmers markets and have their own CSA programs where they're getting more money for their produce than what the school districts typically pay for their produce. So, trying to find creative ways to get the tight budgets of the schools aligned with the higher expectations of the farmers for the value of their produce is a challenge. But, when you impress upon the farmers that school districts are buying very large quantities of food and are able actually to buy product, sometimes what we call the B product, that may not be the perfect shaped cucumber or the perfectly round tomato. Schools, tend to chop everything up into their salad bars or into their sauces, so they don't need everything perfect. There are creative ways to come together and make sure that the two sides are getting fair prices for the product and for their menu programs, and then find other creative ways to work together. So while money can be a challenge, it can be overcome.
Great. Thank you, Andy and Betsy. One more question that I have, anybody is free to answer this. So do you think that there should be some type of training for cafeterias to use when they're purchasing local produce, and anything around that and training and whatnot?
Well, there are lots of trainings that go on. It's voluntary, so districts need to request that training, but we do a number of local procurement trainings on how to purchase products, but there's also trainings that happen around recipe development and marketing. So those things and models for those things definitely exist out there. I know VT Feed has done a bunch of that as well, so maybe they want to comment as well.
Yeah, I think, one of the biggest problems we find with training is most food service personnel don't have money for subs, or their costs aren't covered to attend the trainings. But so we've been trying to make sure that when we do them, if we can offer that kind of support, then we do that. And we do the trainings always in partnership with sometimes the Department of Health, sometimes with chefs, like at the New England Culinary Institute. And, we're now looking at a certification program in Vermont where food service personnel would have sort of a ladder working and get credits and get some sort of certification for the kinds of training. So again, just to elevate that profession and just sort of make it clear that it isn't a one-off workshop, but you're working towards something.
Sorry, this is Tina. I just want to add again, there are also professional standard requirements now for all cafeterias that operate the National School Lunch Program or other child nutrition programs, and many farm-to-school trainings qualified to meet those requirements. And a lot of the regional leads, myself included, for a few years now and are continuing this year, present at state School Nutrition Association conferences, which do tend to be places where you have a high concentration of school nutrition directors as well as cooks in one place. And we find it's a really great way to provide that outreach and technical assistance.
As slow food leaders in a community, we can help with those trainings. Often food service directors are very interested in increasing the knife skills or the recipe reading or just, simple preparations. but they need that expertise to come in to give the training. So since we're so well connected to the chef community, we can often serve as the bridge in recruiting chefs to come into the schools to lead some of these trainings. And what's exciting about Farm to School is we're seeing that the produce that's coming into the schools tends to be whole, raw, fresh produce, and not getting processed at some third-party processor. So now the kitchen workers are dealing with the produce in its whole form, and so knife skills and knowing how to break down different kinds of fruits and vegetables is becoming more and more important to minimize waste and maximize the impact of the produce coming in. And so recruiting local chefs into the schools and setting up some basic training in their own kitchens can be a real benefit that the slow food leaders can bring to a district.
Great, thank you for your answers on that. And since we're wrapping up, I just have one more question. And again, anybody is free to answer this. So for the local chapter leaders that are going to be using this webinar as a reference and a resource, what's your advice for where to start on how to start making the connections and building relationships with Farm to School? If you guys have any piece of advice for people that are just starting out and they really don't know what to do, that would be appreciated.
Well, for many of us in the slow food world, School Gardens is our way to get into the district. Usually School Gardens aren't necessarily dealing directly with the food service department in the district, but if you're able to successfully support School Gardens, at one point you'll get introduced to the food service department, either through the school kitchens at the schools that you're working in or through other sorts of meetings. And then you start the conversation, how can we support your program also? Many of us are parents in the school district, and so we may wear our hat as a slow food leader in School Gardens or chef demonstrations, but we're also parents. And so if we're a parent, you can use that way to get into the food service world. But that it's not an easy world to crack. They are often sheltered from the outside world, and so you gotta attend meetings or get invited because you've been seen to do other good work in the district, and patience, because school districts move very slow. They will not respond quickly to what you have to offer. You just have to be patient. And they've had practices in place for years and years and years, and changing those practices take time. So exhibit patience and exhibit that you're a good partner, and things will come together.
Great, thank you, Andy. So we're just about out of time, but I'd like to thank everyone again, especially to the panelists, Anna, Betsy, Andy, Tegan, and Charlene for your participation. You're all great resources for our local chapter leaders to use. And for listeners, feel free to contact any of us for any further questions. Again, this webinar will be recorded and we will be posting it to our website and YouTube channel shortly. So again, thank you for joining us and taking the time out of your day. Just a reminder that farmtoschool.org is a great consultation service to use, and there is the November 8th deadline for the school year of 2018 USDA Farm to School grants, which Anna knows much more about. So again, thank you guys so much, and look forward to hearing from you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, Anna?
I'm still here. This is
Anna, you're
Anna.
still here. I have a question about the consultation services for Farm to School for your organization.
Sure. Is that a webinar question or something to take offline?
No, it's a webinar question.
Okay. Sure. Yeah. I mean, briefly let me explain that the grants are actually USDA Farm to School grants. That's a grant program funded through the U.S. Department of Agriculture, and the National Farm to School Network is providing consultation services to schools and communities that are interested in support in the application process.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for that.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I think that's great. Okay, well, thank you, everybody.
Okay,
Thank you.
bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.